This is the FPL Draft Zone, your fantasy team's best signing of the season.
Hello and welcome to the FPL Draft Zone, a podcast all about draft FPL. I am Dom Crofts. I hope you are well, and I hope that Game Week 22 turned out just dandy for you and your draft side. I hope the points were massive. I hope the victories were sweet, and I hope your rival managers are wallowing in self-pity right now. Hopefully it all went to plan, but if it didn't, have no fear, because Game Week 23 is right around the corner, and that is why we are here today. We're going to be doing a full Game Week preview. We're going to be talking waivers. We're going to be talking trades. We've got the lot, so don't nobody go nowhere. That is all to come. But before we get started, it's my usual plea from me to you to please, if you're watching us on YouTube, subscribe to the channel so you never miss an episode. And please like and comment on this video. It would also be great if you could tell your friends about us so we can up that subscriber count. And if you're listening to us in audio form on a podcast platform of your choice, please leave us a 5-star review and some generous words, because it helps with that mysterious thing that we all now know as the algorithm. Let's take a look then at the headlines from Game Week 22. And of course, we have to start with the Manchester derby, which was, of course, the first game of Game Week 22. And Patrick Dorgu was among the heroes for Michael Carrick's men. The defender ended the game week with a goal, a clean sheet, and a 15-point return. And he has been threatening to do this over the last few weeks, because this is actually his 4th return in his last 6 games. He got a 5-point return against Aston Villa in Game Week 17, 17-point return in Game Week 18 against Newcastle United. He picked up a 5-pointer against Burnley in Game Week 21, and now this, a 15-point return against Pep Guardiola's Manchester City. He's also seemingly playing out of position, started as a left winger against Manchester City, and you would expect him to do the same in Game Week 23 away at Arsenal to help support Luke Shaw at left back. And if that is the case, he is a player that we have to seriously consider on those waivers if he is available. And we'll be talking more about him in just a little while when we preview Arsenal against Manchester United. It was another good weekend as well for Florian Wirtz, the Liverpool midfielder, who ended the game week with a goal against Burnley and 1.11 XGI. Also picked up all 3 bonus points. He's had 6 returns in his last 9 games now. 3 of those returns were double-digit returns, and he's picked up 4 maximum bonus returns in that time as well. So if you picked up Florian Wirtz on draft day and have held on to him all this time, well done to you. And indeed, if you managed to pick him up on the waivers after a manager lost patience with him, well done to you as well, because he is certainly rewarding that loyalty. And a word as well for James Garner of Everton Football Club, who broke the record for defensive contributions in a match against Aston Villa. 29 defensive contributions against Unai Emery's side. He's actually got 7 DEFCON returns in his last 7 matches. He's averaging 4.5 points per match right now. And of all midfielders in FPL, only Nottingham Forest's Elliot Anderson has made more total defensive contributions than James Garner this season. So well done if you have got James Garner in your draft side, because he is certainly rewarding you if you have. We will get on to Game Week 23 in just a moment, but of course we have to take a look at those teams that are playing in Europe in midweek, because that may well impact who you go for on those waivers and indeed in free agency when it comes about. On Tuesday in the UEFA Champions League, Manchester City go to Bodo Glimt in Norway. Spurs have a home game against Borussia Dortmund. Will that be Thomas Frank's last game in charge? And Arsenal travel to the San Siro in Italy to play Internazionale. On Wednesday, Chelsea have a home game against Paphos, where they may well rotate their side given the calibre of the opposition. Liverpool go to France to play Marseille, and Newcastle also have a home game. They take on PSV Eindhoven at St James's Park. On Thursday, there is no UEFA Conference League action, but there is UEFA Europa League action, which means Aston Villa and Forest are playing. Both of them are on the road. Villa go to Turkey to play Fenerbahce, and Nottingham Forest go to Portugal to play Braga. So those are the teams that are in action in midweek, but this is all about Game Week 23, isn't it? And Game Week 23 gets started on Saturday, the 24th of January, 2026, with a massive game in East London for West Ham United. Fresh from beating Spurs in North London, they return to their roots to take on Sunderland. Sunderland actually won the reverse fixture 3-0 on the opening day of the season, with Dan Ballard among the scorers. I should say that Game Week 23 is the reverse of Game Week 1. So all the fixtures that took place in Game Week 1, this is the reverse of those fixtures, including West Ham against Sunderland. And West Ham are actually unbeaten in the last 5 games against the Black Cats in East London. They've won the last 3. They've conceded just once across those 5 games. So even though Sunderland won at the Stadium of Light, West Ham's form at home to Sunderland suggests that perhaps this could be a successful day at the office for Nuno Espirito Santo's side. And it's about time that we talk about West Ham's new strikers, because we haven't had an opportunity to do that yet. They brought in 2 players to help them find some goals. Tati has come in from Lazio, where he got 5 attacking returns in 11 games in the first half of this season and ended up with 22 attacking returns in 40 games last season. He's had a pretty positive start to his West Ham career. In Game Week 21, racked up 0.40 XG against Nottingham Forest, and it got even better in Game Week 22, 0.73 XG. The other player they've brought in is Pablo, who they've signed from Gil Vicente in Portugal, where he got 11 attacking returns in 13 matches in the first half of this season. Wasn't so good for him last year. Got 5 goals in 20 games. Earned his first start against Spurs, where he got 0.18 XGI. A home game against Sunderland is a good opportunity for them to get off the mark. And then in Game Week 25, they go to Burnley and Turf Moor for what looks like a make or break game for both sides. If both these players are available on the waivers, I would favour Tati, given his form over the last couple of seasons and the fact that he is playing furthest forward for West Ham. Pablo playing as a number 10 just behind Tati against Spurs. His XGI numbers are better as well. But if Pablo is the only option for you and you're in dire need of a playing third striker, you could do much worse than sign Pablo. So a couple of options for you from the Hammers there. As for Sunderland, a few options all over the shop, starting with Enzo Lefebvre, their midfielder, who got a goal against Crystal Palace. He's racked up 6.1 XGI for the season now. But interestingly, more than half of that expected goal involvement has come in his last 6 matches. 3.19 of his XGI has come in his last 6 matches and 6.1 XGI overall. He got 2 returns in those last 6 matches as well. And Sunderland's fixtures are decent for the next 2. West Ham away should present an opportunity for Lefebvre to return again, and then a home game against struggling Burnley. If you're watching us on YouTube, we put his heat map against Crystal Palace up as well, and he was all over the place, but he was certainly playing more in the final third than anywhere else, and certainly has a few opportunities in the box there for his side. So I would expect him to have some opportunities in these next 2 games against West Ham and Burnley. And if you need a midfielder, you could do a lot worse than focus on the former Roman midfielder Enzo Lefebvre. A few other options for you from Sunderland. Brian Brobby got a goal against Crystal Palace. He's now got 2 goals in his last 3 matches and 4 goals for the season. And again, a bit like Enzo Lefebvre, his underlying statistics are improving rapidly over the last few weeks. 1.9 XG for the season, but 1.65 of that XG has come in his last 6 games. And Sunderland's next 2 games, he plays the opposition with the worst XGC in the league. So a very good opportunity for him to reward owners with goals in the next couple of weeks. And a word as well for Nordi Mukiele, who got an assist against Crystal Palace. He's got 5 defensive contribution returns in a row as well. And he's had 6 returns overall in his last 7 matches, the best of which was an 11-point return against Manchester City. So Sunderland continue to defy the odds. They continue to impress. They are unbeaten at home, and you would fancy them to go to East London and put on a show against West Ham, who, of course, all the pressure will be on. It's Burnley taking on Spurs at Turf Moor in the battle of who could care less. Burnley seem to have given up hope, really, although they did earn a draw at Anfield. And Spurs, well, Thomas Frank is having a nightmare first season in North London, and I think it's highly unlikely he will have a second season in North London. Spurs play Dortmund on Tuesday. If they lose that, will Thomas Frank even be in charge for this one? Time will tell. What I will say is that Spurs have won the last 5 meetings between these 2 sides, including a 3-0 win on the opening day when Richarlison and Brennan Johnson got all the goals. And of course, neither of those players will be available for Spurs this weekend. Johnson now, of course, at Crystal Palace, and Richarlison injured. The last matchup at Turf Moor ended 5-2 to the visitors when Son Heung-min scored a hat-trick for Tottenham. As for Burnley options, slim pickings. I'm afraid it's hard to recommend any of their assets given the state they're in. But Jadon Anthony remains their top player for total points and their best for expected goal involvements. He started 2 of the last 3 now. He got a goal in that time as well. And actually, Burnley's next 3 fixtures are not bad. Spurs at home should be a winnable fixture given the state Spurs are in. Then they do go to Sunderland, which will be tricky, but it is a fellow new promoted team. And then a home game against West Ham, which really is a relegation 6-pointer. So Jadon Anthony could be an option for the next few weeks if you fancy a bit of Burnley action. As for Spurs, a couple of options for you. And again, a bit like Burnley, it's hard to recommend Spurs with any real enthusiasm. But Conor Gallagher has signed from Atletico Madrid. He started against West Ham, racked up 0.25 XGI and got 7 DEFCON. In 2023-2024, in his final season in the Premier League with Chelsea, he ranked first for duels, tackles and interceptions, which bodes well if you want a midfielder who's going to rack up those defensive contribution returns. He also ranks second for chances created among the Chelsea team. So he has shown he can do a bit of everything in the heart of that midfield, and Spurs desperately need some players who can actually put the ball in the back of the net, or at least create opportunities for those to do so. And that brings us on to Xavi Simons, who has had a fairly underwhelming season so far since joining the club. But since his return from suspension, 2 games, 1 assist, 0.58 XGI. Could be an option. And of course, if Thomas Frank goes, it could change the entire picture at Spurs if they get a manager in who can get the best out of these sort of players, because those 2 players in particular are very good players. Fulham take on Brighton at Craven Cottage. They have never lost at home to the Seagulls in the Premier League. They've won 4 of their 5 previous meetings at Craven Cottage. The fixture on the opening day of this season up at the Amex ended 1-1. Matt O'Reilly scored for Brighton. He's no longer with the club. And Rodrigo Muniz got the equaliser for Fulham, and he is not going to be available for this one. However, one player who is going to be available, you would think, for Fulham is Alex Iwobi, who is back from the African Cup of Nations, and he loves a game against the Seagulls. He's played 15 games against Brighton, and he's got 3 goals and 4 assists. So 7 attacking returns in 15 matches. He's only managed more attacking returns against West Ham United. So Iwobi loves playing Brighton. Could be a decent shout for you this week. And Anthony Robinson got 10 assists last season from left back for Fulham. He's played 7 matches so far this season since returning from injury. In that time, he's racked up 1.22 XGI. He's averaging 4 points per match, which is solid. And he's hit 2 defensive contribution returns in those 7 games and hit 9 DEFCON twice. So could easily, with a bit more luck, have been 4 defensive contribution returns in 7 matches. So he seems to offer both defensive solidity and attacking threat, which are 2 qualities that you love to see from your draft defenders. As for Brighton, they ended game week 22 in that final game with a 1-1 draw against Bournemouth. Jan-Paul van Heck was excellent in that one. He is now their leading point scorer for the season, got an assist against the Cherries. He's got 3 goals and 2 assists for the season. He's hit DEFCON 7 times. And for Brighton's next 3 games, Fulham away, Everton at home, and Crystal Palace at home. So some very winnable fixtures in there for Brighton. Another option for you, and another player we haven't had a chance to talk about until now, is Pascal Gross, who was re-signed for the club from Borussia Dortmund. He got 10 assists last season in the Bundesliga, which is pretty impressive, I think it's fair to say. He started the last 2 for Hertzler's men. He's got 9 defensive contributions twice. So again, not far off the threshold to get defensive contribution returns. Got 0.43 expected goal involvements against Bournemouth, which is decent. And a reminder, of course, that in his final 2 seasons with the club before he made the move to Dortmund, he was a pretty consistent returner of attacking returns. 2023 to 2024 season, he got 4 goals and 9 assists. And the season before, 2022 to 2023, 9 goals and 8 assists. He is 34 years of age now, but he does seem to have already cemented a place in that Brighton starting 11. And I expect him to do the same and start this one against Fulham. It's Manchester City taking on Wolves at the Etihad. Manchester City have won 9 of the last 10 meetings between these 2 sides, and Erling Haaland loves a game against Wolverhampton Wanderers. He scored twice in the reverse fixture at Molineux, which City won 4-0 on the opening day. And he's got 6 goals in his last 4 games against Wolves. But this Wolves are different to the Wolves that started the season. Rob Edwards has started to get a tune out of them. And it may mean that Wolves options are back on the agenda. We'll talk about them in just a moment. But first, some options for Manchester City from you, who, of course, have signed Mark Gahey this week to improve their defensive options. Abdul Kadir Kusanov has started the last 2 league matches in the heart of that City defence. He did revert to right back in the second half against Manchester City. He picked up 15 defensive contributions against United. And he, I would say, of all City's defensive options, is the most likely player to partner Mark Gahey going forward due to all their defensive injuries. So if you fancy a bit of Manchester City defensive action, Kusanov could well be available on your waivers. And this is a bit more of a punt, but it could turn out quite nicely for you. Omar Mamouche is obviously back from AFCON. He is unavailable for the game in the Champions League against Bodo Glimt, which means that Erling Haaland will almost certainly have to start that one. And that could see Haaland rotated against Wolves, because last week Pep Guardiola spoke about Marmouche's potential return and said hopefully Omar comes back soon to give Erling a breather. And Haaland's form has fallen off a cliff of late. He's not really been finding the net as regularly as you would expect. So maybe he needs that break. And if he does need the break, there's no better game to rest him in than at home to the bottom club. So perhaps if you can get Omar Mamouche in as a 5th midfield option, he may well return with a possible start up front for Manchester City against Wolverhampton Wanderers this weekend, which would be a lovely bit of business for you and your draft team if it comes to pass. As for Wolves options for you, I don't think anyone is expecting them to go to the Etihad and win. I don't think anyone is expecting them to go to the Etihad and keep a clean sheet. But over the next couple of weeks, these 2 players could return for you. First up, Matheus Mane, their forward, who has started the last 5 matches now. He's got 2 goals and an assist in that time. After Manchester City, Wolves have a home game against Bournemouth. And Bournemouth have now conceded more goals away from home than any other Premier League side. They've conceded 30 goals on the road. So when they go to Molineux, Matheus Mane may well feast. Jose Sarr is another option for you from Wolves if you need a goalkeeping option, maybe a second goalkeeper for your side. He started the last 6 games now for Wolves. He's got 3 returns in that time. In game week 22, ended up with 8 points against Newcastle. He's only had to make 3 saves in his last 3 games, and he's got 2 clean sheets in that time. So Rob Edwards has certainly shored up that defence. You would expect him to be a busy boy against Manchester City. You would not expect him to keep a clean sheet, but save points aplenty, perhaps, against the firepower of Pep Guardiola's side. It's Bournemouth taking on Liverpool at the Vitality, and Liverpool have actually won 6 of the 8 games played at Bournemouth Stadium since they were promoted to the Premier League. Last season, it ended 2-0 to the visitors, with Mohamed Salah getting both goals. He is likely to be available for this game, having returned from AFCON. He also scored in the reverse fixture on the opening weekend of the season, which Liverpool won 4-2 on Monday night. Bournemouth option for you, well, they have got all sorts of issues in their attacking areas. They've lost Antoine Semenyo to Manchester City, and Tavernier limped off injured against Brighton as well, with what looks like it could be a hamstring injury. So that should open up more opportunities for Junior Krupi, who actually started against Brighton playing behind Evan Nielsen. He's got 7 goals from 639 minutes of action this season, which works out at 7.1 games. So 7 goals from 7 games, a goal a game. Not bad. And if he can start regularly, he could return for your side. So another decent forward option for your draft side, should you need a third striker option. As for Liverpool, those options will, of course, be slim on the waivers. But Ryan Gravenberch may be available in a few leagues, and he continues to impress. He's got 4 goals and 3 assists this season, 5 DEFCON returns, and 3 double-digit DEFCON near misses. He missed the game against Bournemouth in game week 1, but I would expect him to not just play this one, but to return DEFCON returns. Return DEFCON returns? Is that a thing? You know what I mean, because Declan Rice recently went to Bournemouth and he racked up a whole load of defensive contributions against Bournemouth. It's the way the Cherries play. They expect you to have to deal with their relentless pressing, and I would expect Ryan Gravenberch to be a busy boy against Bournemouth and rack up those DEFCON points. It's Brentford taking on Nottingham Forest at the G-Tech. Forest have actually won the last 3 games against Brentford, including a 3-1 win on the opening day of the season when Chris Wood bagged a brace. He won't be doing that this weekend. Prior to that, though, Brentford were actually unbeaten in their last 6 games against Forest, including the last 2 at the G-Tech, which they both won. Brentford options for you. Kevin Schade has been excellent of late. Somehow did not return this weekend against Chelsea in a game they lost 2-0. Decided to pass when clean through on goal. Could have been a very different story if he'd taken that chance. He is actually top of all Premier League players for expected goals over the last 6 game weeks. He's got 4.42 XG over the last 6 game weeks, and he's actually got 5 attacking returns in that period as well. And Nottingham Forest do give teams opportunities. They've given up 8.85 XGC in their last 6 game weeks. So you'd expect Sharda, who is part of a Brentford side that is really impressing of late, to get opportunities against Sean Dyche's side. He is likely to be taken in a lot of leagues, but Vitaly Janelt is another under-the-radar option for your draft side if you want a bit of the Brentford attacking pie. He's got 5 returns in his last 6 games from midfield, 4 assists and 5 defensive contribution returns. Got a 9-pointer in game week 17 against Wolves, 4 points against Bournemouth in game week 18, 5 against Spurs in 19, and then a massive 11-point return against Everton in game week 20, followed by a 7-point return against Sunderland in game week 21. So Janelt, if you want a piece of that Brentford midfield against Nottingham Forest, could be a decent shout, and he's likely to be available in a whole lot of waivers across the world. As for Forest, this is more a long-term pick, really, and I could have picked any of their backline, but I've gone for Nico Williams, who is their highest-scoring defender right now, and, of course, their biggest attacking threat from that backline. Forest actually have a generous run of fixtures coming up after Brentford. They've got Crystal Palace at home, Leeds away, and Wolves at home. And if they want to avoid a real big relegation dogfight, those are games they have to find results in. Palace at home, they're sort of in disarray, Palace, right now, aren't they? They lost their captain, could well lose their manager over the next few days as well. Wolves at home feels massive. And Leeds away is a tough test, but they are still a newly promoted side, and maybe Sean Dyche can get a tune out of his side for that one. So if you want a piece of Nottingham Forest action, perhaps their defence is the way to go, and Nico Williams represents the best opportunity for points, both going forward and defensively. Crystal Palace, who we just mentioned, they've got a home game this weekend against Chelsea, a London derby, and the last 3 games between these sides have all ended in draws, including a 0-0 draw on the opening day of the season. Prior to that, though, Chelsea had a sublime record against the Eagles. They won the previous 11 meetings, a record that dates back to October 2017. Some options for you from Crystal Palace. Ishmael Sarr is returning from AFCON as a champion. He's got 3 goals and 1 assist for the season so far. I would expect him to return to the starting 11 ahead of Brennan Johnson, Crystal Palace's record signing. He does, of course, face stiff competition from Johnson, but I fancy Sarr to start on the regular going forward. So if he is still available on the waivers, could be a sensible pickup if you need a midfielder who is capable of attacking returns. And Yeremy Pino continues to be a chance creation monster. Got a goal and a 9-point return against Sunderland. He's got 7.6 XGI for the season, which means he is 19th overall of all players for XGI, and he is 11th of all midfielders for XGI. So if he can just turn these chances into points that he's creating, he could be a really decent asset for your side. But it does feel like we've been saying that now for the vast majority of this season. And there is, of course, talk as well that Jean-Philippe Mateta may be about to leave the club, which really would affect their chances of taking some of these chances. We shall see what happens there. We're going to be talking about him in trade options a little later. As for Chelsea, Esteval missed the win over Brentford with illness, but he was absolutely fantastic in the EFL Cup against Arsenal. Ended that game with 5 successful take-ons, 6 touches in the opposition box, the most dribbles of any player in the game. And under a new manager, I fancy Esteval Villian to become a regular starter for Chelsea Football Club. It is a gamble. It is a roll of the dice. But I just think when you've got a player of that ability, he has to be in that starting 11 sooner rather than later. And I think Liam Rosenior will not be afraid to give chances to youth. So I'd fancy Esteval to start this one. And I think going forward, he could be a regular starter for Chelsea. So as I say, it's a punt. But if you want to get in on the action with Esteval early and hope that he does become a regular starter, now might be the time to make that move. Because if he does start against Palace and he does impress and he does return, that opportunity may be gone before you get the chance to take that opportunity. Wesley Fofana is another option for you from Chelsea. Tosin started against Brentford but limped off with a hamstring injury. Wesley Fofana doesn't seem to be able to play more than a game a week, but fixture-wise, Chelsea's run is very appealing. Palace away this weekend, then a home game against West Ham, a trip to Wolves, and then 2 home games against newly promoted Leeds and newly promoted Burnley. So if you can get in on that Chelsea defence, then you should see returns over the next 4 or 5 game weeks. And of course, Cucurella will be taken in most leagues. So too will Reece James. Gusto is not a guaranteed starter. And of course, Chalobah is the only central defender who seems to start week in, week out. But If Tosin is out injured, it may be that Rosenior has to play for Fana week in, week out. Alternatives, if that is not the case, Josh Achiampong and Benoit Badiashile. Let's see who starts for Chelsea in midweek in the Champions League, and we can go from there. But just to put it on your radar, Fofana, Achiampong and Badiashile seem like wise potential routes into a backline that should keep clean sheets over the next few weeks. It's Newcastle taking on Aston Villa at St James's Park, and Newcastle are actually unbeaten at home to Aston Villa in their last 17 games, a record that dates back all the way to April 2005. So Villa just cannot win in the Northeast. Anthony Gordon and Joe Linton were both on target in a 3-0 win last season. And in the last 3 games at St James's Park between Newcastle and Villa, the aggregate score is Newcastle 12, Aston Villa 1. So you'd have to fancy a home win in this one, despite Villa's impressive league position. Options for you from Newcastle United. Well, Tino Livramento is unavailable with a hamstring injury, and Kieran Trippier started at the weekend against Wolves. And how about this for a statistic, or an anomaly, I should say? Newcastle have kept 5 clean sheets this season, only 5, but Kieran Trippier has started every single one of those games. He's only had 9 starts this season, but in that time, he's been part of a back line that has kept 5 clean sheets, and Newcastle have not kept any clean sheets all season when Trippier has not started. So I'd expect him to start going forward. I'd expect him to start in this one. And given Aston Villa's appalling record in the Northeast, it wouldn't surprise me if they kept a clean sheet this weekend against Unai Emery's side. As for options from Unai Emery's side, Emi Buendia could be getting more action over the next few weeks because John McGinn limped off injured at the weekend, and that really does limit Emery's options. Buendia has started 4 of the last 5 games, and Villa's run is decent. Their next 3 home fixtures all look very winnable. Brentford at home, Brighton at home, and Leeds at home over the next few weeks. And Yuri Tielemans remains on our list of potential waiver options. Gameweek 22 racked up 0.47 XGI against Everton. Gameweek 21, 0.49 XGI against Crystal Palace and got an assist. He remains Aston Villa's creator-in-chief, and they are up against very limited opposition over the next few weeks. So if you wanted to get in on Tielemans and hold him for the next few weeks, you could be rewarded. At the Emirates Stadium on Sunday, it is Arsenal against Manchester United. Arsenal are actually unbeaten in their last 7 games with United, and they won the reverse fixture 1-0 on the opening day of the season in a game where really United edged it, to be totally honest. Last season, Jurrien Timber and William Saliba got the goals in a 2-0 win in the league, but United did beat Arsenal on penalties at the Emirates Stadium in the FA Cup after a 1-1 draw. So who are the options here for you? Well, from Arsenal, Kai Havertz is being eased back into their team, but surely going forward, he is going to be a first-choice starter. And if you can get the first-choice starting striker on the waivers from the team top of the league and favourites to win the title, then you'd be mad not to. If you have space in that front line and your third striker option is not up to much, surely it's worth getting in Kai Havertz and holding him, because I do think he will displace Victor Gyökeres as soon as he is physically able to do so. He got 35 attacking returns in 51 starts for Arsenal over the last 2 seasons. So he is very much a player who can work in this Arsenal system and return regularly. And Ben White started against Nottingham Forest, also started against Chelsea in the EFL Cup. He seems to be preferred to Lewis Skelly, who is out of favour right now. And with Pierre Nketiah still injured and Ricardo Calafiori still injured, I'd expect Ben White to start on the right-hand side, Jurrien Timber to start on the left. And of course, Ben White offers a lot more attacking potential on that right-hand side due to his chemistry with Martin Odegaard and Bukayo Saka. So White could well provide you a clean sheet and maybe, just maybe, an attacking return or 2 as well, as he got against Chelsea in that semi-final first leg. As for Manchester United, we spoke about him earlier, and Patrick Dorgu has to be in your thoughts ahead of this week's waivers. Playing as a winger against Manchester City, got a goal, got 0.49 XGI. He's got 1.66 XGI across his last 6 matches. And the next 5 games after Arsenal are good for Manchester United. They have Fulham at home, Spurs at home, West Ham away, Everton away, and Crystal Palace at home. Of all those games, really, Everton away seems like the trickiest fixture, but Fulham at home, Spurs at home, Palace at home, and West Ham away. It could be time to place your faith in Manchester United assets, and Dorgu could be a cheat code if he continues to play on the left wing while classified as a defender. If Dorgu's already taken, maybe Amad Diallo might be free. He's just come back from AFCON as well. He had a goal disallowed against Manchester City playing as a right winger, racked up 0.26 XGI. I think he'll be first choice going forward on the right under Carrick. He said after the Manchester City game, the two wide lads, Ahmad and Dorgu, were fantastic both ways. He has got a track record of playing Amad Diallo when he has been in charge of Manchester United in the past. I would expect both of these players to be regular starters going forward. So if you could get either in your draft team, kudos to you. As for the final game of Game Week 23, that takes place on Monday, the 26th of January, 2026, and it sees Everton taking on Leeds United. Lucas Nemecha earned Leeds 3 points on the opening weekend of the season thanks to an 84th minute penalty decider. Everton won the last game played on Merseyside between these sides, though. That took place back in February 2023, ended 1-0, and Seamus Coleman got the only goal of the game. Everton options for you. Well, you could make a move early for Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall if he is still hanging about on the waivers. He is surely going to be returning from injury sooner rather than later following that hamstring injury. He's got 4 goals and 3 assists for the season. He ranks joint 14th for most points per match across all Premier League players this season. And Iliman Ndiaye is also returning from AFCON. He's got 4 goals and 2 assists. And Everton's next 4 fixtures are generous. Leeds at home, Brighton away, Fulham away, and Bournemouth at home. So either of those midfielders could be decent shouts for you. A word as well for James Garner, who we mentioned earlier. He seems to be the ultimate DEFCON monster outside of Elliot Anderson. So if you fancy James Garner, he'd be a decent shout as well. He's averaging 4.5 points per game. And Michael Keane is going to be suspended for this game week, but he is actually the 8th highest scoring defender overall in the game, and he's ranked 6th for most goals of all defenders as well. So if you can bring him in on the waivers this week, hold him on the bench, then you're picking up a player who is a top 10 defender across FPL. And that seems like a pretty smart move if you can get it over the line. As for Leeds, James Justin has started the last 4 games and he's doing pretty well, thank you very much. In Game Week 19, 6 points against Liverpool. Game Week 24 points against Manchester United. Game Week 21 was that insane game at St James's Park against Newcastle where he ended with a 0-pointer, but returned to form against Fulham with a 9-point return. Could be a decent route into that Leeds defence, who have certainly looked more impressive over the last few weeks. Clean sheet, of course, against Fulham. And Ethan Ampadu in their midfield is showing signs of having some attacking output as well as some DEFCON output. A 7-point return against Fulham, including an assist. 4 returns for him now in his last 5 matches. He's hit DEFCON 10 times this season, including in 4 of his last 5 appearances. So you could do a lot worse and get Ethan Ampadu in as your 5th midfielder, as a player who just regularly picks up those DEFCON points. So about Game Week 23, top picks for you are dominated by Manchester United players, really. First up, Patrick Dorgu, who I've put there as a midfielder if you're watching on YouTube, but he is, of course, a defender playing in midfield, playing out of position as a left winger. His underlying expected goal involvement stats are high, 0.49 XGC against Manchester City. His recent form has been excellent. And as we said, Manchester United's fixtures are very tasty coming up after this Arsenal game at the weekend. So he could be a cheat code for your draft side. Amad Diallo will be their first choice right winger going forward under Michael Carrick, and he has a solid track record in the Premier League already. 8 goals and 8 assists last season was pretty impressive. 2 goals and 4 assists this season, playing really as a wing-back. Will he be playing a lot more offensively under Carrick as that right winger? So if you can get him in, that seems like a dream move for your midfield. And this one, a bit more of a pun, Esteval Villian, 0.66 XGI per 90 across the season so far. He ranks 9th for most XGI per 90 of all players in the Premier League. And Chelsea's next 5 fixtures are too good to ignore. Crystal Palace away, West Ham at home, Wolves away, Leeds at home, and Burnley at home. There is no guarantee that Liam Rossini will start him, but in his time at Strasbourg, he was not afraid to blood youngsters. And when you've got a player of the calibre of Esteval Villian, it seems madness not to give him minutes in the Premier League. We have to talk trade talk as well, and Jean-Philippe Mateta is hitting the headlines this week. He has been heavily linked with a move away from Crystal Palace, which I'm sure will cheer Oliver Glasner up no end. Potential clubs linked with him: Juventus in Serie A, Spurs, and Aston Villa. Oliver Glasner has said there will be a price that Crystal Palace accept. If nobody pays the price, then he will stay. So if you are an owner of Jean-Philippe Mateta, you have a bit of a problem on your hands. It could be that he remains at Crystal Palace. It could be that he remains in the Premier League, or it could be that he leaves the Premier League altogether and signs for Juventus. That seems the most likely move right now. Talk of him joining on loan with an obligatory fee at the end of the season. If that happens, now might be the time to ship him on. So see if anyone will bite in your draft league for Jean-Philippe Mateta. Sort of players that you might have to trade for him. Ollie Watkins, maybe. Jared Bowen, perhaps. You might be able to get one of those over the line. Mateta's form has not been great of late. If he does stay in the Premier League, it could backfire for you. But I think right now, the way the tide is turning, I think there's every chance he's going to be leaving the Premier League in January and heading to Italy. So if you own him, that is a decision that you're going to have to ponder and quite possibly make. Game week 23 to-do list then. European fixtures, injuries and rotation. There will be injuries. There will be rotation, and that will impact who plays in game week 23. So keep an eye on who starts for the likes of Chelsea, Manchester City, Arsenal, Newcastle, Liverpool, Aston Villa, and Nottingham Forest over the next few days. Keep an eye on those pre-waiver deadline press conferences for any clue as to who will start in game week 23 for those 20 Premier League sides. And of course, keep an eye on the post-waiver deadline press conferences as well, because they will influence what you do and don't do, or what you should do and shouldn't do in free agency. Don't forget to follow us on our socials as well. We are at FPL Draft Zone on X and Instagram. We're also at fpldraftzone.bsky.social on Blue Sky. And please, a little bit of homework for you, and it doesn't take long. Leave us a 5-star review if you're listening to us in audio form, and some kind words as well. And if you're watching us on YouTube, please like and subscribe to the channel. But that is it for this week's edition of the FPL Draft Zone. Hopefully game week 23 will be the game week of your dreams, and you will walk away from it victorious against your most hated rival managers. Until next time, enjoy your football, and bye for now.